Hi, my name is Trevor Stocking, and I'm here today to talk to you about teaching pitching mechanics. Before we talk about the absolutes of pitching, we must establish the role of a coach and a player. Once we do that, everything else is much easier. But if we go into teaching pitching with just doing the absolutes, once we get into a game situation, everything's going to come unraveled. So the first thing when we understand the role of a pitcher is first we're going to ask the players what they believe their strengths and weaknesses are. And you're going to get most pitchers, they're not going to be able to answer any of their strengths. They're going to be afraid in a group, or they're not going to want to talk about it, or they just don't understand. And they'll instantly go into what they do incorrectly. Now, when we first establish their strengths, the reason why we want to do this is because we want them to have something to fall back onto when the bases are loaded, or it's the championship game and they're in a stressful situation. They have something to fall back onto. Our job as a coach, which we'll talk about, is to be able to give them 2 or 3 strengths that they can tell you. And after you've worked with them long enough, when you ask them that question, they're going to give you 3 or 4 answers. But to start, if you can get 1 strength out of them, even if it's the smallest thing, like they think they can throw strikes, that's a good thing. Now, their weaknesses, the reason why we want to know their weaknesses is so that we can decrease them eventually. They might give you 10 weaknesses that they have. Eventually, if they can give you 2, that's a good thing. So, now that we understand the strengths and weaknesses and we get a relationship with them, the next thing we need to talk about is creating a role for them, what their role is as a pitcher. And this is the most important part that we can learn in all of this instruction. When I understand the pitcher's role, I'm going to ask them what they feel their role is. And every pitcher will give you the answer: throw strikes, throw a no-hitter, get outs. And when we think about that, really, we want to create a job that they control. If someone else controls it, on the mound, they're going to freak out and lose control. And once that happens, they're done. So if we talk about just one example, if they say that their job is to get outs, I ask them who has control over that. And they'll say they do. But really, when it comes down to it, there are 8 fielders in the field, and if I throw a perfect pitch and they make an error, and I feel my job is to get outs, I'm going to be really upset and take that into my next pitch. And then I'm not going to be able to focus on what my job is. If I also feel that there's outs, an umpire also has control over that. So we're adding 9 people into the fray of everything. The easiest way to get them to understand is if you ask them if they have a job at home and they do chores, they will say that they don't like it because their parents control it, or they just don't want to do it. But if we told them that if they went home and they could tell their parents that they didn't have to control their chores, they could just do it on their own whenever they wanted to, they would all like that. So if we can find one job that they control, or one chore that they like, it would be this: throwing to the catcher's glove. It's the catcher's job to catch the ball, but really it's the one thing that stays the same, whether the hitter is 6'4", whether he's a major leaguer or a T-ball player. The catcher's always going to give a target. And if I can throw to the target, the umpire might call it a strike, I might create more outs. And if I miss the target, the pitcher then has control over the next pitch to try to get it back into it. So again, we're establishing control for a pitcher and a role that they control. So the simplest thing, if a pitcher can control throwing to the glove, that's their job. So if I ask any pitcher what their job is, it's going to be throwing to the glove. And if they don't throw it to the glove, their job is then to learn how to make an adjustment so that they can get it back to the glove. And what we'll talk about next is the role of a coach, which is getting the pitcher to understand how to make that adjustment.